Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Semantic Kernel Office Hours. We are at a new time. I know that might not work well for some people. I know the people from Europe, this is probably very late for them. So if you are from Europe here, thank you for joining us this late. We know that we want to serve as many of you as possible. So we are still tinkering around with the timing and everything. So just let us know and on Discord and all that, how we can make it better. But for now, this is our new time for these office hours. We have a pretty packed agenda and a lot of things to go over and talk about. But let me share my screen. We can see where we're at. My computer's a little laggy, but hopefully you all see my screen. Okay, so in terms of announcements, yes, so we have, quite laggy. Okay, we have one of our partner teams. So Azure Cognitive Search just announced their support for vector search inside their service. So you can expect a video featuring myself and Devis on this topic very soon. But we invite you all to check this. It's available today in Semantic Kernel. So if you wanted to use Azure Cognitive Search inside your applications, you can. So definitely invite you all to check that out. At the same time, we have a lot more other content available. So on YouTube, you can find some of the extra videos around it's all about plugins actually this week. So we have a lot of content around, how do you build a ChatGPT-style plugin in C# in Python, as well as how do you test these plugins if you don't necessarily even have a ChatGPT Pro subscription. Which, for those who don't know, it's like what, $20 per month to get access. And even if you do have access, you have to go on this wait list to get access to plugins. So, one thing that we've heard from you all and that we've developed is a way for you to test these things for free inside the Copilot Chat app. So we'll definitely invite you to check that out. And yeah. So we have some new dev blogs out here. So I see that we have Bruno here joining us. So Bruno, do you want to just give a quick shout out of what we see here about Java?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Yeah, my name is Bruno. I'm the PM in the Java engineering group working on the semantic kernel for Java. We have been working for the past couple months on the semantic kernel implementation, and we're soon to announce the alpha release. The version is 0.2.6 that's available now on Maven Central. The blog post provides a glimpse of what the code looks like, the API. The API is quite similar to the C# version of the SK. We have baseline in Java 8 because that Java 8 is a very solid version across the Java ecosystem. It is compatible with any newer version. Our samples, we try to write with the newer versions in mind. So when people look at the sample, they can think about modern applications. But because we know customers, sometimes they cannot move to newer versions of Java, the library itself is still based on Java 8. This actually enables customers and users to write even Android applications to use the Java semantic kernel, because Android is still based on Java 8 with a few APIs only from Java 11. And the other thing is, it is alpha release, and there will be bugs. There will be some other issues and features. It's not feature complete with all the other versions, .NET and Python, but the core functionality is available, especially the planner, which we believe is one of the most important value adds of the library. compared to other implementations out there. So yeah, we do suggest that developers give it a try and play with it and provide feedback. The feedback can be provided through Discord channel, through GitHub issues, or even I just updated the blog post. There is an email in case you're working with a customer, in case you're working with somebody that you cannot disclose information. We have an email at Microsoft.com where you can contact the engineering team through the PM group. Yeah, any questions, comments? I think that's it at the moment.
I will say, and Shannon Monroe, colleague, can attest to this, that having Java is a huge unlock for a lot of enterprises that are using Java, maybe Java 8 or some really old version, and it's a welcome addition, welcome sign to have this in the semantic kernel. So thank you, Bruno, and thank you, Java team, for doing this.
Rock on.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. So in terms of other blog posts to call out, the Create Your First ChatGPT plugin is also there from Matthew Bolaños. So check that one out. We have some new tools inside I believe this is the VS Code extension inside for semantic kernel tools. So this is about prompt engineering with multiple endpoints. Shannon, since you're here, do you want to quickly highlight this?
Yeah, this is a quick article on how to get started using the semantic kernel extension and being able to plug in multiple endpoints. And what gets interesting is being able to repeat the process against multiple endpoints. So you can start to test performance against different models and start to look at what do those conversations look like and how do you select which models to go forward with. So this is, again, super basic. First time we're exposing these tools to make this possible. I expect a whole lot more of innovation and tooling to come in this space, but it's kind of exciting to be able to hammer against multiple models and see the responses.
Very cool. And lastly, we have our first ever Semantic Kernel Plugins Hackathon happening right now, actually, and going until the 25th. So if you haven't already, we would definitely invite you to RSVP on Partiful to participate. It's all about trying to use the semantic kernel to create ChatGPT-style plugins that you can either test in ChatGPT if you have access to it, or as I mentioned before, you could test it for free using Copilot Chat and the semantic kernel itself. So what are plugins, right? Plugins are just a way for you to be able to interface in a universal manner, right? It uses a open API manifest schema, and that allows you to honestly do like anything as long as you create it in that way. You can express any native function or existing API that you have, any connector that you want, and turn that into a plugin. So we think it's super powerful and a good thing for us to standardize on across all of Microsoft and OpenAI and just the broader community. So yeah, we invite you to participate. We have prizes. We'll announce soon exactly what those will look like, but we have 3 categories. One is, I think I called it like best enterprise plugin or best plugin for the enterprise. The other one is like most creative, most fun plugin. And the third one is community voted. So we will vote on, after we get these submissions, the first 2 will be the core semantic kernel team will vote on that, but the last one will be for you all to vote on, most likely through Discord, and we'll figure out how to exactly do that. But yeah, we'll do that, and then hopefully again it's going to be the first out of many that you'll see. So okay, without further ado, a lot of announcements and things to go over, but we have a lot of questions to talk about now. So I'll kick it off here with Alicia. So Alicia asks, oh, also before that, again, if you have questions you would like to ask live, right, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to put it in the chat. And we're welcome to take things that are not on our current agenda. So treat this as an interactive session, feel free to come in. I see actually Alicia rose her hand. Or
Well, yeah, I actually posted this question last week, and I actually already submitted the PR for Google Palm.
Yeah.
So maybe skip this question.
Okay, yeah, no, that's no problem. Well, thank you for the submission. I think the meta question here is, yes, we would love to have more of these type of models, of these different connectors. We know that we today are a bit more biased towards OpenAI, I think by nature, but that doesn't have to be the case always, right? We want to support all different models. So yes, thank you for making this PR, and we would love to see more. Okay, next question we have from Kay. So Kay says, thanks for the amazing Copilot Chat sample app. I've spent a lot of time going through the ChatSkill and have a pretty decent understanding of how it works and all the different prompts that it uses. Could you go into the thought process behind how these prompts were written and any advice for someone who is interested in building something similar? So I see Craig, there's some points here, but maybe Craig or Tao, do you want to go ahead?
Do you want to jump in, Tao? Otherwise, I can give some general.
Sure. I've responded to your comment. So a brief history of the Copilot Chat. So prior to the one you're seeing right now, Brian was the one who created all the prompts. So we only made small modifications to it along the way, primarily because of when I want to say for token usage, and then there is some, I guess, sometimes some prompts were too wordy, and we saw typos and stuff like that. But most of the prompts you are seeing right now came from the original prompt from Brian. And I suppose advice, this is kind of like a new kind of area, right? Prompt engineering. So it's still experimental. Like, we're not saying that the ones we're using right now in Copilot Chat are the ones using, are the like golden standard. So I guess my advice is like something that when I'm working on something else, something that I always think about when I start writing prompts is the token usage. Like, you want to be, expressive, but also try not to be too wordy and try to be concise. And the second one is because we're building a chatbot, and the persona kind of, it's like comes from the prompt you give to the bot, right? So you can create a really polite bot or a pretty not polite bot, right? This like it all based on the prompt you give to the bot. And the third, I think, is formatting. So if you really look into the prompt in Copilot Chat, sometimes we all capitalize, I think, respond with one sentence or response in this format, like a JSON format or something. So and again, those were not like guaranteed. So you have to do some additional checks to make sure the model responds with something that you expect. And some of the things I think to make your life a little bit easier would be to use the extension, because it allows you to quickly iterate through your prompt or the playground. And sometimes it's just the model, right? If you're using GPT-3.5 Turbo versus GPT-4, I've seen like the same prompt, but then they produce like just opposite answer. Like I ask the two models to respond with yes or no, right? When it's given a question. So GPT-3.5 Turbo responded with yes, while GPT-4 responded with no. So, so sometimes you need to. It might not be your prompt. It's just a model. So I encourage you to try your prompt with the model as well. That's just my general advice. Hope that helps.
That's great. Craig, do you want to add that?
I think that was excellent advice, and it's important to consider those different facets of it. It's not just the prompt, it's the model. It can be the domain that you're working in. There might be different terminology that's specific to the domain that you must use. When I'm doing the prompting, I try to think of it as an extremely intelligent 2-year-old. And by that, I mean, you need to be quite explicit in what you're asking for. And this goes back to the Scalace laws, right? Ask smart to get smart. So give a really good input, you'll get a really good output. If you give a less good input, you're more likely to get a less good output. I think what Tao said is excellent. I don't think I could add anything to that.
Very good. Very good. Tim, I do see your hand up. I'm going to quickly add your question to the slide. But, whoops. If you want to come off mute and describe it, that would be
guys,
great.
Thanks for taking some time here today for clarification. But we've been working on a series of demos, mostly been using the notebooks, the Polyglot notebooks. It's a great way to kind of interact, see results, but also be able to document some of your work so you kind of go back through it and share with your colleagues. But anyway, during the course of building some of these assets up, we've been using Meta's SK recipes, and specifically it was using text completions. And now that things are appears to be moving more towards chat completions, looking at some of the more recent examples, we're converting some of these demos over to use chat completions. And specifically ran into an issue where after we imported the skills with kind of the new method calls, we then began to use the prompt. The reason is the examples are hard coded, and we wanted to essentially set up, embeddings, essentially also to use vector databases. And so we ran these, and then on the execution, we got an error where type SK functions trying to convert to a type string was the error we got. And then we went and looked at some of the metadata that was in there. It was incorrect inside our object. So I was wondering, is anybody have any comments? Is that just something that's in flight, that's in the process of being completed, not completed, or are we kind of moving away from that way of doing things with skills and imported skills and whatnot? We're looking at two different sides of the fence, I guess. Looking at SK's, the semantic kernel to come into, and then it to kind of translate for us based on OpenAI or some of the other new models that are coming out. And so I just wanted to get a reading on that from you folks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Dennis, do you want to comment on this?
We had the exact same question, I think, a couple of hours ago. And I think there is some friction in the kernel because we designed it to work with text models, and then we added an interface with support also chat models. We tried to mitigate that, but we might have some work left to do. As we add more models, like really the kernel is very much OpenAI centric and designed it was designed at the time where GPT-4 was still a text model. And then after we launched a semantic kernel, chat model became very popular. So there's a different API under the cover. However, the fact that so the kernel is designed on these design principles of text in, text out is very powerful, and you can pipe text across multiple steps. So you can run a prompt, generate text, pass that text to another prompt and so on. You can change these prompts to get very powerful behavior.
All
And we
the
kept that.
all the base type for most of everything in here is strings and text. I agree. So
Yeah. However, better models now are coming out and they have a chat API. They don't provide the text API anymore. And this could change again in the future as maybe they become more functional models than chat models. So the API could change again. So from a semantic kernel perspective, we want to keep the text in, text out approach, maybe allowing also to do image in, image out, sound in, sound out in the future. On top of any interface that these models might provide, like as we add Llama, Anthropic, BART, and other models in the future, they will have differences, but we can always go back to text and try to build the new features on that, just the common ground of text in, text out. So if there is friction, it would be nice to know where. I think there are some slight difference between Python and C#. I've noticed the way they switch from one model to the other. We did try to automate. I think we can do better. Maybe there is, for example, a trick where you can try to call an API. If the API returns 404, you can switch from text to chat API. We could automate that, and it will just, you might incur in an extra API call though. No cost, but extra latency. So I think the models are changing a lot and we have to adapt. So the SDK will evolve, but we want to keep that text in, text out approach for those scenarios where you're running a prompt. However, if you're running a chat, if you're building a chat, I think you should leverage the chat API. So you can go a little bit lower level and use these classes and functions where you pass a chat history, you get back a message and so forth. And similarly, if you're working with images, you might not use a semantic function to generate an image. You just call the image client, image generation client, in a similar way.
I got it. I think we beat our heads a little bit together just to get all the up to fact to even import it. We actually looked at some of the source code over on .NET and looked at the SDKs, and so we got our method signatures correct and whatnot. But it just, when we got to that point where we began to use it, create new chat specifically, that's when the thing came tumbling down on us. And then we just noticed some of the data inside the object appeared to be not what we thought we put in. So yeah, I think you answered it. I think chat is not prime time for right now. The text completion piece appears to be an approach that was, I mean, it does work. And we've actually gone in and looked at the OpenAI piece along with SK to see if, hey, we throw these prompts, do we come back with, I know it's non-deterministic, do we come back with similar answers and whatnot when we put the, harnesses on top end and temperature and whatnot. So I think you answered my question. We need to kind of sit and wait, I guess. Is there anything on the roadmap that you can pinpoint where we kind of retake a look at this, or we're just kind of sitting in a watch mode?
I have two answers. One is, if you could share some snippet of code that we can look at together, it might be an easy way to go through your experience. More high level, more generic. On the roadmap, we have a lot that will help with testing, reliability, monitoring what these models are doing, measuring whether they're doing well or not. So you can expect in the coming few months a set of tools and features which will allow you to observe, measure, detect errors. Like if you're building an app with a model and you switch to another, you want to know that nothing is breaking. We will provide those tools. It's work in progress, but we know that we're moving from this exploration phase to a production phase where people now, they want to ship, they want to put in production, and then we expect the apps to work. And at the same time, they want to leverage new models as they're released, like GPT-4, Llama, and so forth. So we will provide those hooks and features and tools in VS Code and more. So just it's just a matter of few weeks and months as we work through those, and we will keep announcing new features. Also with logging, collecting telemetry, and things like that.
I can appreciate, and I thank you for the work you're putting in. And I see that obviously Llama 2 just kind of came out like a couple of days ago. I don't know if they're working with you and, along the way, but basically I see this is a good thing because we've abstracted out the back end models. We can flip models without, breaking things, if you will, in the application code. So
Yep.
that said, we will package up some things, continue our dialogue with the code so you can see it. We got it up on our repo, so if you want to go dig deep, you can see what that is. So we'll add you to the repo and you can take a peek, and we can point out some specific lines so you don't have to spend time going through things. But it's modular. I like the fact that we're using notebooks because you can kind of say what you're going to do, then go do it, and then see the results. And so you can fire these things up. You just have to put your secrets in, get yourself attached to your plan, and you're good to go. So we'll follow up on that. I have a couple colleagues I'm working with, so that may have been one of them on an earlier call. So similar pain points. We're up late. We love this stuff. You guys are doing great, and I think there's a definite end game here, and specifically since these models are popping out left and right, I like the fact that we're abstracting out the fact that we can just put a new one in. Also looking at plugins. That's kind of the other approach of how that's growing, and we hope to have some demos up using the plugins as soon as possible as well. So we'll go through the growing pains there. So, thank you.
That sounds good. One thing I'll quickly add, Copilot Chat, the sample in the repository that we're talking about earlier, it does use chat completion for all of the back and forth that it's doing. It does not do, I looked at example 17 as the ChatGPT low-level calls on those APIs. It does not do that. It's using the chat completion as a text completion shim kind of approach. So you can still use the chat completion model with plugins, with skills, as we used to call these things today, and that all works quite well. So anyway, we'll look forward to seeing what you are able to share with us. And
when we hard coded that first initial prompt in, everything worked good. As soon as we did the import and used that, that's when things broke. Well, it'll be apparent as soon as you fire through. There's not much there that you have to weed through before you can get to what the real problem is. So we'll share that with you. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim.
Good. Alex, you want to get it up to you, or is that where you want me to get it first?
Please submit it on GitHub if possible. That's the best way for us to, or GitHub issues, and that's the best way for us to, see it, and then even the community can comment on it. So
bingo. Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yes, as you also mentioned plugins. Again, shout out or plug for, if you have a plugin, submit it to our plugin hackathon that's going on right now. So anyway, just reinforcing it. But yes, great discussion, great question. Before we get into this one, just because I think I can answer this quickly, Steve on chat asks, is the Microsoft Safety Layer API available yet? I personally don't know which API that is, but does someone know?
Yeah, I think it's a content security one. Let me I literally provisioned one of these yesterday. Let me see if I can find the link. I think we call it Azure Content Security. It's a service. Let me see if I can find it. Azure AI Content Safety. Let me drop a link in.
Is this what they showed off at Inspire, where there was like, oh, you could toggle the degree of, what do you want to call it, content filtering that you want?
Possibly. Possibly, yeah. Is that the right one? That may or may not be the correct link, but I think the answer is yes. That's available as a preview. Images and text. Yeah, and so there was another one. I think this is a slight rebranding of Azure Content Moderator, and I think it has some additional stuff to help deal with the AI, the responsible AI stuff that we all are faced with. So is it similar to the moderation API from OpenAI? I don't know the answer to that. I think yes, but I don't know the exact answer on that one. Yeah, it looks like it. So Casey, is this what you're thinking of?
Yeah, this looks really similar to the moderation API that OpenAI provides for you to hit before you send text into their API. However, it does look like there's more capabilities with image recognition as well, as opposed to just text.
Gotcha.
Cool. I think Steve's broader question is this available in the semantic kernel? Probably. I think not yet. I think we actually have this broader story around how do we bring more responsible AI skills / plugins into the kernel, such that it's like super easy to be like, oh hey, I can, import this thing in my application. This is good for us to know, or definitely good for me to know about. So thank you for bringing it up. And yes, the answer is we will see how we can incorporate these in some way or fashion.
Yeah, that'd be great. Particularly for the OpenAI one, just because you will get failed responses if you send stuff that does not meet their moderation requirements. And the moderation API from OpenAI is free to hit, no charge.
Nice. It's good to know. Cool. Well, let's go on to the next question. So Giannis asks, are there any pointers to managing token consumption by client tenant to manage billing towards clients using semantic kernel services? Examples include each client having a token capacity, tracking logs by client ID and token consumption, cost consumption, etc. Does the upcoming telemetry PR fit into this scenario?
Yeah, I think the upcoming telemetry PR got merged yesterday. I looked at this a moment ago.
So I think when it comes to billing, every service relies on Azure billing and the Azure telemetry. That telemetry does not, as far as I know, does not support custom tags. Like when you're sending an API request to OpenAI, you can't say this request is coming from Semantic Kernel or is coming from LangChain or Llama Index. I don't think it is supported. We had this conversation last year because we thought it would be useful to know, even, well, I forget the SDK, but you might have multiple applications deployed on Azure. You might want to build or see the billing by applications on the same endpoint. And it's not supported, so you need to deploy the models multiple times, and so each endpoint has its own billing. That said, I think you can use your own telemetry, like App Insights and things like that. And this PR from Dimitrov might help collecting extra telemetry on App Insights or your logging system and including token numbers and all of that. You might have to do the work manually though to create reports and all of that.
Yeah, the question felt like a multi-tenant kind of scenario, right? Where you spin up a service and then you have your customers then consume from you, and how do you meter for each of your customers? So you could kind of take the approach Devis talked through. You could also do a bunch of code, right? Like write your own code that sits as a shim in front of every request coming to you, where you track some of this stuff. Sounds like a lot of work, but that might be an approach to take as well.
I think we should share this feedback with the Azure team. It might be a common scenario. Also considering that there is a limit, I think, on how many deployments of OpenAI you can do. If you have multiple tenants, you might still be blocked and be able to deploy OpenAI only once, and then asking to have more bandwidth. And you lose that ability to track on the Azure portal to track billing by tenant. So if everyone ends up recreating that solution, it would be worth having it in Azure itself or allowing multiple deployments at least.
Yeah, I think there was a throttle of 50 going to OpenAI. I remember the number 50. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I remember seeing something like that.
They've been playing with all of the metering quite a bit. I think they now made it so you can have multiple regions with models deployed in multiple regions. And I think they did the rate. I can't remember what the calculations were. There's a T tokens per minute or something. I think it's now across all of them. I'll find the actual link with the details. But they have this this metering that they put in front.
Amar, I'm sure this is already happening. IT's yelling about why is your Azure bill so high? Cool. Well, we'll move on to the next question, but thank you, Giannis, for this. I think it's a very interesting one and one we can dive into in the future. Okay, so next question we have from Gyro. How can I get a plan that will include chat plugin to generate the answer of the output generated for the plan? For example, I would like that after the goal decided to use the math plugin to add 2 numbers, it will use the chat plugin to elaborate a creative and personalized answer.
Yeah, hello. I can elaborate a little more if it's needed. I mean, like that I am trying like to use the sequential planner so that I would like to get it from the output that because I am like importing like this math plugin skill, for example, and I am also like importing like time skill from the core skills and other like skills. But I would like that after the output that is like returning me, like the sequential planner, will return also that has to use like another plugin that I am importing, that is chat plugin that like I include like the SK prompt like to generate this kind of output. So for example, if I am asking about to make some operation and give me like the time of the day, so that this like will return me like all the output of the plan, but also will include this like a chat plugin to elaborate this response from the bot, because that I am getting right now is only that is like returning me only like the time and skill and like the math plugin, and looks that is not using the other one chat plugin. Like,
I see. Okay, yeah, so let me rephrase it or repeat back what I heard. So it sounds like, yeah, you're using the planner, sequential planner. You have things like a math plugin, time plugin, and the chat plugin, and it's picking up on the first 2 and outputting like the quote unquote answer. But what you want it to do is to output like an elaboration of not just the answer, but like why it is, or something more than that. And like it's kind of like terminating, if you will, at just the answer. Yeah. Does anyone on the call who's been playing more with sequential planner be able to answer this?
Bucket list.
Planning's a tricky one. I have not played with sequential planner yet, I'm embarrassed to say. And I think after this call, I will go and try and do this. So you have multiple plugins. You're doing, let's say 2 + 2. Let's say the math plugin is just solving 2 + 2. And then after that, you want the chat plugin to say something like, the answer was 2 + 2 because, let's say it's for children. Let's say you're trying to teach children how to add 2 numbers together. The solution to 2 + 2 was 4, because if you take 2 crayons and then you add another 2 crayons next to them and you count all of them one by one, you get 4. Like, let's just say that's the scenario. Is that the right way of thinking about what you're trying to do? Like, you want an answer and then you want something to...
Yeah. It's like that because also like that I am trying is like to pass for also for this like chat plugin, like the chat history, like in the context of the kernel. So that I mean that that I would like is that will elaborate like answer, not only like taking like the result of the planner, take like elaborating also with including like the what was my previous chat history, so that will like return me answer with this context, like and will elaborate like the answer in like including the context. So that is the goal that I was trying.
Yeah, one thing I have done in the past is use an action planner, which picks just one skill or plugin from its pool of what it knows about to then solve a discrete problem and then pass that to something else. So you could try using like, an action planner or something first to give you an answer, and then you could pass that into even just a basic prompt at that point, elaborate on this thing. Or if you need to do more planning because you don't know deterministically what's going to happen, you could have an action planner that does step 1, then a sequential planner that does step 2. You don't have to use just one planning solution. The more you add, the longer the latency before you give someone back an answer. That's possible as well. Yeah, so I don't have a better answer for you. You have motivated me now to go and learn how to use sequential planner though.
Thanks. I will be like trying like in the way that you answer me, and also I will like look for like more different approaches. That is that I am trying right now, but I didn't get still. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, would love to hear how you go with that. Please keep us in the loop.
Yeah, let us know. But thank you for the question. It's a good one. Okay, we have a next question from Pawan Gupta. Pawan asks, is SK available to be used in Microsoft Teams AI library for building a Gen AI based bot? So I'm making an assumption here that the Microsoft Teams AI library refers to like Teams, what do they call it? Bot builder?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it available to be used? So I don't know what the latest is on this, but I know that we had discussions with the bot builder framework team or teams, and they were using Semantic Kernel. So maybe some of it is already like under the hood inside. But if you want if you're using, let's say, that framework and you want to add some more stuff to it, I would say, yeah, you should be able to use Semantic Kernel. Treat Semantic Kernel just like a library that you're bringing in, and whatever sort of customization or thing you want to do on top of it, you should be able to. Do you want to elaborate some more on what sort of thing you're trying to do?
Yeah, basically, I'm trying to build a bot which would work in MS Teams. But obviously, we want to use Gen AI and don't define this intent and utterance and all. So looks like the Teams AI library provides you like a easy start point. But then orchestrator API, you can say, right? I'm building in kernel SK, and I want to be able to call that orchestrator API from these Teams AI library. I'm not finding like much documentation, but I do see in chat some of you are replying, which I appreciate, and I will look for. I'll go through those documentation and links. If anybody has done that work, if you can share anything, that would be highly appreciated.
Yeah, this is Alex.
Okay.
This is not the first time we've had this question, right? This is something others have asked in the past. So maybe we need an actual sample that shows how to do this. Yeah, okay, I see Steve has posted some stuff. Okay. What template added SK services work? Great.
Yeah, it looks like there is an abstraction, right, currently, where the Teams AI library is directly talking to either Azure OpenAI or an OpenAI endpoint directly. and there is no layer in between, obviously that won't be a practical production solution, right? You want a it does have a hooks for memory and all, but I was hoping to be able to leverage the SK there as well.
Steve, since you seem to have a lot of experience with this, do you want to maybe talk high level of some of the things that you could offer to Pawan as advice?
Yeah, sure. So I basically just took the Teams bot builder kind of SDK example and just kind of started with that as a framework layer and built off of that. Just added in, SK services, singletons, transient, whatever you need. And then just start implementing, a lot of the code I had from a previous WPF app that was a chat bot using, Semantic Kernel. So it's just like like you said earlier, it's just like any other NuGet library you're going to pull in, use as a resource. I'm going to kind of keep all of my AI and semantic centric code all centered around the semantic kernel and not, I don't know what the team's AI stuff what their layer is using. So I just kept everything all AI related, all around the SK kernel itself. Since that seems to be, kind of the center of all development efforts at Microsoft there. So it's been working great. I still, the one thing I think I chatted with this group a couple calls ago was I'm still trying to figure out, a good method to show citations as it relates to a RAG pattern. I'm kind of doing that myself in Teams with kind of reference buttons underneath, coming from Azure Cognitive Search, those related documents, and kind of just providing hyperlinks since this is internal to a company, an enterprise level company, and they can just click that link and it opens up that document. It's native, Word or PDF or whatever it's coming from, and from Azure files. And that seems to be working fine. But kind of the way in the very first chat in today's session, where I think that was about dolphins, kind of showing those citations in line in the way that, Azure, or not Azure, but Bing does it. And I've seen that Azure has someone from Azure gave me a repo. They kind of have it built on, it's either React or Vue, something front end. And they're kind of putting citations in their front end as well. I'm kind of struggling to do that with Teams. That's something we're going to look into this week. And then the other hurdle is going to be chat completion, or having the chat stream as well, and text streaming. I'm not sure if that's capable with Teams. I haven't really dove into that, but that's kind of the next two hurdles I'm going to be looking at. But it works great.
Yeah, I think I understand that path. Taking the bot builder and then adding the SK. I was looking for help where we add on the Teams AI library, because then you lose all the work which I think MS Team has done with the Teams library. So
yeah, I just messaged.
I'm not familiar with the Teams AI library.
Yeah, I messaged someone internally to see if we can get more detail on this. So I think it's clear there's two paths, right? There's the one Steve was talking about, the bot builder one, which has been around for quite a long time, and then there's this Teams AI library. So I'll see what we have going over there. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, I appreciate for help. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you, Pawan. Thank you, Steve, for this. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. So, and 2 more questions. So, okay, Ambrose asks, for C# native functions, any way to support POCOs as input return types for plugins, SK functions? Even if not, I'd like to hear if there are any other workarounds. Sorry, this is my ignorance. What are POCOs? What are POCOs?
There's just plain old C# objects. So instead of, so right now in the example that I'm showing, I have a string. I'm returning a serialized list of employees, for example, right? But I was just wondering if there's a way to just put that type right into the method signature. Right now, I can only put strings or primitive types if I'm going to use them as SK functions, right? So I'm just wondering if there's any plans to support that, or any other workarounds where I don't have to serialize my input, and deserialize my input and then serialize the output so that they match so that I can make them primitive types.
Yeah, I don't know if Davis is still floating around. There was some work done quite a while ago to modify the input output. Jump in, Davis.
Yeah, let me find the link. The PR 1195. Copy link. I think this might have. We are trying to remove some constraints from functions, and this is one of those PRs that touches the function signatures. You see multiple native function arguments of many types. So in theory, this should help with your scenario in the C# world. We haven't done this in Python yet.
Oh, right. I saw this PR. This is kind of similar. This is when you have like two more input parameters, but those parameters still need to be primitive types. So I was just wondering about the case where, yeah, the parameter is like a list of something, right? Then when I try to compile it, then it won't let me. It says that the input parameter has to be a string, or it can be an int or double or some other primitive.
I haven't tried, to be honest, with complex types. Before this pull request, the approach was to serialize and deserialize the POCO, those classes. So I think in the spirit of text in, text out, we'll be using JSON serializations. You can ask a model to generate a JSON, and then you can deserialize it into a complex object, assuming that the JSON is correct. I think the best answer that we have so far is in that pull request. If that doesn't solve your problem, I would create an issue and ask either for suggestions or for a new feature, allowing not just primitives, but any type.
Yeah, I think that's good enough for now. Like I got it, it's working. It's just the code is ugly because I have to manually serialize and deserialize stuff at the beginning and the end, but that's okay.
Yeah, another thing that we were considering is allowing the context to be generic so that you could create a context of T. Currently, the context is a context of string, hard-coded. And then we would transparently do serialization, deserialization. So making your code, removing the ugliness from your code and doing that internally. It will still be based on serialization anyway. Also considering that we're moving into this world where the plugins are HTTP endpoints, we need that capability of passing the context around as a string anyway. So yeah, sorry if the code looks ugly, but it's still what we have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ambrose, for asking that. Okay, we have our last question. It's coming from Discord. So Bellwort asks, and I know that a few people on the Discord already were talking about this, but it's an embedding and context question. So Bellwort asks, say you have a doc that is split into 100 chunks because it is large. The chunks and information in the doc are not related because of the splitting technique page. So top K for context can miss important info. So do we also need to examine embeddings that are local to the top K? Or what is the strategy to handle this disconnect?
It's a very complex topic, and there is no one answer fits all scenario. First of all, it depends on the document. Like if you take, let's say, an article, Q&A, FAQ, or a chat log, all of them, you can see they have very different structure. So the way that you chunk those is different. You might chunk a document by paragraphs. You might chunk a chat log by topics, and you have to structure the topics. You might chunk a Q&A page for each individual question and answer. So that's the first part, and we're working on making that easy so that we basically provide multiple chunking strategies. When it comes to search, you have a trade-off between the cost of the tokens that you're going to use and the quality of the output that you want to get. So let's say you go with an old model like TextDaVinci 3, you have 4,000 tokens. You have to optimize the context that you put in the window. You have 4,000 tokens minus the size of the request. If you go with GPT-432K, you could say, I'm going to put in there as much as I can because I really care about the answer to be grounded in as much information as I can. Now, depends also on your scenario, like do you want to pay more or not? So there is always a trade-off depending on the scenario, how much you're willing to spend and all of that. Taking the top K is normally a yes. Like you don't take only one, take more, but it's not just you. So something that we're trying to show is when you chunk these documents, currently the approach is to put all the chunks in the same collection or the same index. Actually, you get a better result if you generate different chunks or even overlapping for the same source, and you store those chunks in different collections with different characteristics. Like you might have a collection for facts, you might have a collection for opinions, you might have a collection about personal information, you might have a collection about my last 10 minutes, what I was doing on my PC. That is useful context. So you can bring information out of all of those indexes and put all of that information to the prompt, asking the model to generate the answer. So the secret is combining all of these strategies, and we will show we have a work in progress of where we bring all of this together, like also natural language to SQL is another part of the topic where maybe my data is in a table. How do I answer a question with that? And so, yeah, you take the top K, but you also take top K from multiple tables. And what those tables contains really depends on the data that you are ingesting. So there is a lot of stuff, and I think we would be talking more about that. Then, of course, the cost will matter. You might have to make a choice, like you might have a configuration, say, I'm willing to spend 2,000 tokens top, optimize the content of those tokens, or I'm willing to fill as much as I can, and I don't care about the cost, I really care about the quality. So all those things will come together in a series of blog posts and videos. I hope this helps a bit. I know it's a very vague somehow, but it's a evolving thing. We're trying to make it easier to process with examples.
Yeah, and I mean, this question came from Discord, so everyone here, everyone in the community online, definitely engage on this topic. I think it's a really good one. We'd love to hear and see your strategies on how to solve this. So anyway, but with that, to wrap up today's call, again, one more shout out to the hackathon, plugin hackathon that's happening this week up until the July 25th. We'll take submissions all the way up until 5 p.m. So get involved, submit your plugin, earn some prizes. And one last thing is that at some point in the near future, I will be sending out this survey. Mentioned at the top of the hour that we would, as part of our shift even towards this community office hour time to a new time, we want to know what best suits and best serves the community. So the way we do that is by knowing more about you and where you're coming from, what time zone you're in, all those sort of things. So expect this survey to launch sometime soon on Discord, and yeah, hope you can figure out. But with that, thank you everybody for joining, and see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Nice job, guys. Thank you.